Coming back. So the example that we looked at, the UK company would be importing goods from Reds and they have to pay for the import goods either 27,932 or 28,050. As we said, the rates given by the bank are these two. So banks will give two rates and bank will want to make profits always. That means the customer point of view, if you are getting one of the rate, that rate has to be expensive to you. So if you take these two cost of purchase using two different rates, this is the expensive one. So which means you have to pay higher value, not the lower value. Always remember that. So you have to pay 28,050. 28,050 is using this rate, which means you are buying rates at this rate. When you are buying a customer, bank is selling. So bank is selling at this rate. If you want to buy and bank is selling, if you want to sell, bank will be buying. So bank will be buying at this rate. So keep that in mind. There could be terminology saying spot rate and forward rate. What is spot rate? What is forward rate? If you can buy the dollar immediate delivery at a rate, that rate is called spot rate. Which means, for example, $1 is 195. If they say $1 is 195, you can get the dollar immediate delivery. That means if I go to buy now, I can buy the dollar at this rate, which means this is the spot rate. If I say the delivery of the dollar, whatever number of dollars I want to buy, $1,000, $500, that number of dollars I can get delivery not today, I'll get it 1 month later. That dollar value is say 197, which is called forward rate. So this is spot rate means immediate delivery. This is future delivery. So please know the difference. If your dollars are bought at immediate delivery, it's called spot rate, the rate what is given. The rate what is given where your delivery of dollars will be in the future date, it's called forward rate. So this only a terminology difference, spot rate and forward rate. Then the TUTE, exchange rate TUTE, you might see page number 6, which talks about risk and risk management. I think in the morning we discussed about the risk. Risk is the issue or the adverse impact you will get because of the exchange rate imports or export or your businesses. What is risk management? Risk management is about the company's policies, processes, techniques or methods, whatever you adopt in order to reduce the impact of exchange rate risk. Risk is adverse changes in exchange rate. Adverse changes in exchange rate is a risk to the company. So what are the steps company take? Company can take either strategies or techniques or methods, various things. Names can vary. Policies, all these are risk management. Whatever you take to reduce the impact of risk is called risk management. I could give a simple example. When you know that the road, wherever you are going to a destination, on the way you know the road is getting blocked because of the protest. So if you know there is a risk of protest being happening, therefore you can't go to the destination on time, what risk management do you do? you do risk management, you find an alternate route to achieve the destination. That planning and the activity you are doing is called risk management. Similarly, if you feel in the morning when you get up, while you want to go to some place, and you realize that there is going to be a risk of raining. Risk of raining. Rain will come and then that disturbs your plan of going somewhere. So what is risk management? You might take umbrella, simple thing, you take an umbrella so that you reduce the risk of you getting wet. And your company realizes there is the risk of floods happening in your area, your stores or warehouse or the factory, wherever your place where your goods are kept, there is a risk of floods happening and those goods getting damaged. So what is risk management? You might decide to move from that location to another location. That's the risk management. Or you still feel that you can't move goods from there, then the risk management would be your insurance. So please note various types of risk. You will take various steps or techniques or methods to reduce the impact of risk. Those steps are called risk management. Okay, that's page number 6 talks about it. Then we move on to types of currency risk. Types of currency risk. Page number 7, there are 3 types of currency risk. 3 types of currency risk. We'll take one by one. Page number 7. Transaction risk. Second, translation. Third, economic risk. So your risk, in terms of exchange rate, we say exchange rate is a risk. Exchange rate changes is a risk actually. These are the types of risk you will have relating to exchange rate. What is transaction? From the date you purchase your goods till you settle the goods value, the exchange rate can vary. The risk of exchange rate varying from the transaction date to the settlement date is called transaction risk. For example, 15th of January 2020, you import goods. 15th of April 2020, you settle the supplier. Please note, 15th of January you are importing goods. On that date, your $1 equals to 187 or 82. 182. 15th of April only you have to settle. At that day, $1 equals to 195. Now what is the risk? The transaction risk means transaction date to your settlement date. Settlement date, exchange rate change. This is the transaction risk. It can be for export related also. The day you export and the day you get your money. The exchange rate varying from the export date to the settlement date. That means your money receiving date. The exchange rate variation is called transaction risk. And most of the exchange related risk is relating to transaction risk. All the company talks today about transaction risk. I bought it in January, I have to settle in April, I am exposed, higher exchange rate impact, I am exposed to risk. What risk? Transaction risk. Second one, translation. This is accounting risk. I would call it accounting risk. Why? From the day you purchase, till your reporting date, reporting date, not the settlement date, till the reporting date, your exchange rate variation. Same example, 15th of January 2020, you have imported goods. When the dollar is 182. Your reporting date, 31st March 2020. That means your account finalization for quarterly or annually. It can be some company annually, some company quarterly. Quarterly accounts, if you take 31st March 2020, you will convert your monetary assets and liability at the closing rate. On this date, your $1 equals to rupees 190. This date, your dollar equals to 190. So, gap between 182 to 190, this is the translation risk impact. Translation risk impact. So, what we are trying to say, from transaction date till reporting date, not the settlement date, till the reporting date, the exchange rate variation is called translation risk. So your exchange rate variation is only a book entry. You will account it as a gain or loss. In this case, loss. So this is only an accounting entry. But transaction risk is where you are really materializing the risk. You have to pay the supplier at the 195. You lose money. Even though translation risk you account for, you are not realize the losses. You will realize the loss when you settle. So please note, translation risk is from the transaction date till the reporting date conversion, whatever the exchange rate variation is called translation risk. This is an accounting risk. It's actually accounting related. Not really you involve cash. You are not involving cash. It's only book entry. You will account for assets and liability and losses and gains, but no cash outflow. But transaction risk is usually you are incurring cash. You might lose, sometimes gain in terms of exports. It happens. So please note, out of the foreign currency related risk, transaction is the key risk. Day-to-day basis, all the companies face this. Not translation. That's accounting. Third one. Third one is the economic risk. Economic risk. Actually, what is economic risk? It's about your losing competitive edge. Losing competitive edge in international market. International market. Because of the exchange rate variation, if you are losing competitive edge in the international market, that risk is called economic risk. Because of exchange rate variation, you are losing competitive edge in the international market. If you are losing that, that is called economic risk. So please note, you Sri Lankan company, you import goods from Europe, right? Imports, raw material. You are importing raw material. In Sri Lanka, you process and manufacture, or process and manufacture. Then you export. Finished goods to US. You are a Sri Lankan company. You are importing from UK or Europe, and you are exporting to US after manufacturing or processing. These are normal, say, garment industry. What happens? They import goods, they export goods. So they are imported raw material, manufacture by doing value addition, and they export to US. Now say, Sri Lanka rupee, and they say you are talking about sterling pound. Sterling pound, 2 rupees. Currencies involved. Here, dollar, rupees. Currency involved. So what's going to happen? When do you think Sri Lanka company products will lose its competitive edge in the international market? That means Sri Lankan products become expensive so that nobody buys. That's the meaning of competitive edge you are losing. Compared to your market players, your product is expensive. So people don't want it. Assume the quality remains the same, but price become expensive. Then you lose the competitive edge. People don't want it. Right? So you need to understand that competitive edge means comparing to your market players, your product become expensive. In this case, it's expensive. We are not talking about quality or any other service levels. It's about expensive. So it's becoming expensive compared to others, then nobody buys our products. When do you think it happens? You are importing raw material from UK or Europe and exporting to US. If what happens, you lose your competitive edge in the international market. Sterling pound appreciation, sterling pound depreciation. If sterling pound is appreciating means 1 sterling pound equals to 225 rupees. If sterling pound appreciate, 1 sterling pound equals to 230. You have to pay more rupees to buy 1 sterling pound. That is the meaning of sterling pound is appreciating. Sri Lanka rupee depreciating. So in this example, 1 sterling become 1 sterling is 225. If sterling pound appreciate, 1 sterling pound equals to 220 rupees. So Sri Lanka rupee is depreciating, sterling pound is appreciating. My question to you, when you Sri Lankan products become expensive to US customers, if sterling pound appreciate or depreciate. If sterling pound appreciate, our raw material goods is becoming cheaper or expensive. If the sterling pound appreciate, we have to pay more rupees or less rupees. We have to pay more rupees. So if the sterling pound is appreciating, we have to pay more rupees, which means our raw material import cost become cheaper or expensive. If the sterling pound appreciate, raw material become expensive. If sterling pound appreciate, raw material expensive, which means we assume that we are keeping margin on our manufacturing goods and selling to US. If the raw material cost goes up, are we going to lose competitiveness or gain competitiveness? We are going to lose competitiveness. So sterling pound appreciation, we lose competitiveness. If the sterling pound depreciate, we are at a but if it is losing, we lose competitiveness in the market. We are losing with our customers' market, we lose our competitiveness. One. That's one story gone. Second side, we are exporting to US. When do you think if dollar appreciate or dollar depreciate, we lose competitiveness in the international market? If the dollar is going to appreciate, we will get more rupees. We get more rupees. Then if your pricing in the market remains the same, we are at an advantage. But if a dollar is depreciating, we will have to get lower rupees. we will get lower rupees. Right? Same product price. Same product price. We have it in the market, say whatever $1 is or tea, 1 kg. We have the same price. If the dollar is appreciating, we get more rupees. We get more rupees. As I export, I get more rupees. So I get more rupees means I am gaining. I am gaining. I am not going to worry about it. I am gaining. I don't lose competitiveness. I am fine. But if the dollar is depreciating, what am I going to do? I am going to lose. So if dollar is depreciating, practically what we do, since we are saying rupees, we will increase the price. When the dollar depreciates, we get lesser rupees. In order to increase our rupees amount, we will increase our price. $1, we might make it $1.1. When we increase our price, are we going to gain competitiveness or lose competitiveness? You are going to lose competitiveness. So when the dollar depreciates, we are going to lose competitiveness. Why? Because Sri Lankan company increases price. Sri Lankan company increase the price in order to compensate the dollar depreciation. Since dollar is depreciating, we are losing rupees. We want to increase the price. When we increase the price, we lose. We lose what? Competitiveness. So please note, either sterling pound appreciation or dollar depreciation, in both cases, we lose competitiveness edge. This is called economic risk. So exchange rate movement, exchange rate changes impacting us to lose competitive edge is called economic risk. This is very few times you will experience. It's not day-to-day basis like transaction risk you don't experience. Economic risk happens over a period of time and you have to decide what you have to do. You can't immediately change. But over long run, if you decide or if you feel that you are losing competitive edge, what is the alternative? You shift your supplier from Europe to another country. You will shift your US customer to another country. So what you can do, either you shift your customer or shift your supplier in order to avoid losing the competitive edge. This is the solution for economic risk. What are solution? Either you change your supplier or you change your customer. Not the customer or supplier per se, customer country, supplier country. So that you reduce the impact of loosening competitive edge. This is called economic risk. This is very, very strategically an issue company face, and they will do the solution accordingly. It's not like transaction risk, day-to-day basis you face. You don't worry about that. Transaction risk is something daily. Exchange rate today changing, your import cost, settlement, everything affected. This is something on a long run you feel it and shift your markets. Please note that properly. I think you need to take down this example. So please take down this properly. This is for economic risk example. So those are the three types of exchange rate or currency risk: transaction, translation, economic. Economic risk, I have given the answer how to reduce the impact. Economic risk, how do you reduce the impact, we have discussed. Translation risk is accounting. You don't have to do anything. It's only your book entry you pass at the reporting date, maybe March 31st or 30th June or year end 31st December. You do that accounting. So there is nothing that you have to do risk management to reduce the risk. It's only accounting. The main risk is transaction. Main risk is transaction risk. That risk, how do you minimize? That's mainly the subject we have to discuss a lot of things. Transaction risk, how do I manage? Okay, so we come to that now. So you can have a heading, risk minimization, techniques, risk minimization techniques or methods, mainly for transaction risk. In the exchange rate risk, one category called transaction risk. To reduce that risk, what are the techniques or methods I can adopt? Minimize the risk or impact. Risk minimization techniques or methods, transaction risk. I think our maybe next 2 classes discussion will be evolving on this. So please take serious note. This is the key area because, as I mentioned, exchange rate risk is the risk, the adverse changes in exchange rate impacting the organization. There are 3 types of risk: transaction, translation, economic. Economic risk, it's about the competitiveness you are losing. It's a more of a longer term issue, you lose markets. So what do? We said that you shift your markets or shift your supplier. Translation risk is accounting risk. Why? From the transaction date till your reporting date, exchange rate variation, which is only accounting. You are not losing money, you book it, that's all. Transaction risk is from the transaction date till your settlement date, your exchange rate movement. That is the serious thing we have to address. So please note, our entire discussion next 2 classes will be evolving on these techniques. So make sure that you are clearly understanding it. So take an example. 15th of January 2020, Sri Lankan company imports $100,000 worth goods from US. Sri Lankan company imports $100,000 goods from US on 15th of January 2020. On 15th of January 2020. Settlement date 3 months later. Settlement date 3 months later. When is the settlement date? 15th of April 2020. When we imported goods, on that day, $1, 182. 15th of January 2020, we are importing goods. 182 is the $1 value. So please note, $1 is worth 182 rupees on that date. We are going to import goods. Goods are come. When do you settle? 3 months are being given by the supplier to pay, that is 15th of April 2020. 15th of April 2020, $1 become 195. $1 become 195. So what is the risk we are talking? Adverse changes in exchange rate resulting a loss. Adverse changes in the exchange rate resulting a loss to the company. 182, 195. In order to pay my supplier, I had to incur 82 to 95 rupees per dollar into $100,000. So when I buy, actually on 15th of January 2020, purchase value is $100,000 into 182. $100,000 into 182, which is how much? 18.2 million rupees. 18.2 million rupees I have to spend. I am taking as my cost of purchase on 15th of January 2020. This is my cost of purchase. 15th of April, same goods, I have to pay my supplier $100,000 into 195. Rupees 19.5 million. Rupees 19.5 million. So I have to incur 1.3 million extra loss. What is this? Exchange loss. Since I am paying only on 15th of April, my supplier, I have to pay same $100,000. There is no change in my supplier's invoice value, which is still $100,000, but exchange rate has changed from 182 to 195. 13 rupees per dollar, Sri Lanka rupee has depreciated and dollar has appreciated. Since Sri Lanka rupee has depreciated by 13 rupees per dollar, for the $100,000, I have to incur 1.3 million rupees. As a Sri Lankan company, since I am paying on 15th of April 2020, I am losing 1.3 million exchange loss. This is what normally happens. When the exchange rate depreciates like this or Sri Lanka rupee depreciates like this, we lose always. As an importer, I lose 1.3 million on this transaction. So what is the risk? On 15th of January 2020, my exchange rate is 182. 15th of January 2020, my exchange rate is 182. At that date, I understand Sri Lanka rupee is going to depreciate when it comes to settlement date. On settlement date, Sri Lanka rupee is going to depreciate. How much? I am not too sure. I don't know exact rate. But I know that it's going to depreciate. If Sri Lanka rupee is depreciating by 15th of April 2020, I have to pay more rupees to pay the same 100,000 supply invoice. Same supply invoice. I have to pay rupees more, which means I am going to lose money. I am going to lose money. Why? Because the exchange rate variation, I am losing money. Since I am going to lose money in the future, I know that there is a exchange rate risk if I am going to pay on 15th of April. I don't know the exact amount. We calculated now, but on that date, 15th of January, I may not know exactly how much I have to pay. But I know there is going to be exchange rate loss. So what do? That is the risk I am talking. The risk is to be found, understood, identified on this day. Or you realize there is a risk only this date. 15th of April, everything happened and gone. We don't have to worry about it. It has happened. 15th of January only you realize, okay, I am having a risk. 15th of April. Not today. 15th of April I have a risk. Whether I will lose so much, I don't know. So since I know that risk, I need to reduce the impact of the loss. reduce the impact of the loss. So please take down this example because I will be explaining again and again on some of the techniques on the example what I meant here. It's about a Sri Lankan company importing goods, 100,000 worth goods from USA, and the exchange rate at that time is 182. It's only in the bank at that date 182. For accounting, you will record it at 100,000 into 18 point, that is 18.2 million, your purchase cost. But your supplier is not paid yet. Supply is paid only on 15th of April 2020. So 3 months later only you are supposed to settle the supplier. 15th of April your rate become 195. So then possible exchange loss 1.2 million. Can you please take down this example properly? So you would have taken it down. Now we go to learn about the techniques to reduce the exchange rate risk. The first technique is invoice in local currency. Invoice in local currency. So transaction risk of exchange rate, we can reduce the impact. One of the technique, invoice in local currency. How do I reduce it? Why we are incurring exchange loss? Because our suppliers invoice in dollars and the dollar exchange rate 182 become 195. So my exchange rate is varying because I am invoiced in dollars. Think, same transaction. If your supplier invoices you on 15th of January at 18.2 million, because 15th of January your exchange rate is 182. Assume that the value of your purchase is 18.2 million. You are invoiced by your supplier 18.2 million. And you get an invoice 18.2 million. You have to settle 3 months later. You go to the bank, buy the dollars, not buy the dollars, you pay rupee. How much you have to pay? Because invoice says 18.2 million. Your settlement value 18.2 million. Are you incurring exchange losses? Are you incurring exchange losses? No. Why? Your invoice is in rupees, you settle in rupees. It's like you are buying in Sri Lanka from somebody in rupees and pay 3 months later, same rupees. No exchange losses. Why the exchange losses came? Because the invoice is in dollars. So you agree with your supplier, please invoice me in rupees. If you have invoiced me 18.2 million, I will settle 18.2 million. No exchange losses. But who loses the exchange loss? The US supplier. US supplier loses the money. So need to know, even though it's a good technique, invoicing local currency, which will reduce the impact of exchange losses. Question is, are we able to tell our customers and suppliers to invoice in local currency? Are we able? Answer is no. In the TUTE, you can look at the TUTE, page number 10. Page number 10. Right? So it's actually very detailed explained. Right? So you don't have to take down a lot of things. Unless I tell you to take down something, please take down. Otherwise, don't worry about it. Invoice in local currency. Invoice in local currency is a good technique. It reduces the exchange losses. Problem is, are we able to tell our suppliers or customers that we will invoice or you invoice in our currency? Very, very difficult. Because we are a small nation and developing country. We cannot dictate most of the time terms to larger players. We can't tell a US company that we will invoice in Sri Lankan rupees. They are not going to agree. Similarly, our imports, if we are saying from India, we are importing, even India may not agree that we invoice in local currency. So even though it's a good technique, practically, since we don't have less bargaining power, this technique is not very much suitable. Since the bargaining power of Sri Lanka is lesser, we cannot get supplier or customer to agree to invoice in local currency. So please keep that in mind. Even though it's a good technique. Second technique or method to reduce the exchange rate impact. We now know that there is a risk. We know definitely there is a risk. If I go to pay in 15th of April, I will lose money. So how do I reduce? This first technique we looked at, even though it's a good one, practically you may not be able to customer or supplier to invoice. Second one, matching receipts and payments. Matching receipts and payments. Please note that this is a technique which is used by many of the importers and exporters. Matching receipts and payments. What am I trying to say here? If you are an importer as well as exporter, what you can do? Say garment company. They are importing raw material from Israel. They manufacture goods. They export to another country. So they are doing this both. They import and they export. So they are exposed to exchange rate variation. Both sides. Import as well as export. What they do? They will open a foreign currency, say dollar, in this case dollar account. Bank account. What do? You foreign currency receipts. You will basically, when you get your foreign currency receipts, you receipts, dollar deposit. Your receipts, dollars, you deposit into that account. And when you settle your supplier, again you get dollars from the same account as a withdrawal. So what you are doing? You create a bank account, it's a dollar account. You receive your export proceeds in dollars, put it into the dollar account, it's in dollars. You don't convert to rupees. It's in dollar account. And you settle the supplier in dollars by withdrawing. In both cases, you don't convert foreign currency into rupees. You are not converting foreign currency into rupees. Therefore, the risk of exchange rate reduces. You convert your foreign currency into rupees, you are exposed to exchange rate risk. If you are not converting and you are keeping in foreign currency, you are not exposed to exchange rate risk. So you are receiving, keeping the money in dollar account, paying the supplier from the same dollar account. By doing that, your dollars are managed. You don't convert into exchange to rupees. You keep the dollar as it is, settle your supplier by withdrawing. So you don't lose money. You don't incur exchange losses. This is the more practically used technique by most of the companies. When they receive money in dollars, put it into dollar account, settle the suppliers from the same account, so you don't convert dollar into rupees. If you go to convert dollar into rupees, you lose money. Or When you buy dollars, you lose money. So don't do that. Keep in dollar account. This is a good technique, it is used, but it has its two limitations. You can read the tute anyway. Two limitations. One, timing. What is the meaning of timing? You don't get the receipts first. You get first payment. Because you import, you manufacture, then only you sell. So therefore, there is a timing wise, it's not matching. Even though we say match receipts and payment, it can't match the timing exactly. Maybe the first shipment you may not match it properly, later on match it. One is that. Second, the amount. Amount. You don't get exact amount of dollars, exact amount of receipts and payments. It will be different. So you need to know that the timing and amount are not the same as you think, but to great extent you manage your exchange rate risk very much from this technique. So please know this is a very good technique, which is practically used technique where keep the money, foreign currency as it is to pay the supplier. By doing that, you are not exposed to the exchange rate movement. From your transaction date to what you call settlement date, even if the exchange rate varies, you don't lose money because it's all in your dollar account. So from your receipt, you are paying, so you don't lose money. Otherwise, you are losing money to bank. You are losing money to bank. So please understand, these are good by most of the people. Third technique called leads or lags. Page number 12. Page number 12. Lead mean in advance. Lead mean advance. Lags mean delay. Please note, this is a technique where you are making use of the time to either pay in advance or receive in advance. Similarly, you can pay later or receive or later. So whatever the way you want to, you can do it. I'll take the example and explain. So we said 15th of January 2020, we imported goods. Imported. $100,000. And $1 equals to 182. 15th of April, we are supposed to settle. 15th of April, we are supposed to settle. Settlement date. Same 100,000. $1 equals to, we don't know. We will know. Know only when you are settling. So what you are going to do? When you realize that your 182 per dollar will be expensive when I go to settle on 15th of April. So I know definitely my exchange rate is going to depreciate, that means Sri Lanka rupee depreciate, I have to pay more rupees. So what do? I need to now decide I have to reduce that impact. So what I could do, 15th of February, for example, I settle. 15th of February, $1 equals to 183. When I realize 15th of April, the dollar is going to be say 195. Something, we don't know. We assume that something 190 levels, it will be there. So I am going to lose much. So how do I reduce the loss? I can reduce the loss by paying in advance. Even though due date is 15th of April, I can pay early so that I pay lesser rupees. If I pay on this date, my settlement value is 18.3 million. rupees. 18.3 million rupees. If I have to pay on this date, I will be paying 19.5 million. So I will now decide I will have to save some losses. How do I do that? I pay early. Payment in advance. I am settling my supplier in advance. Supplier will be very happy. So I pay in advance so that my exchange losses are lower. 182 become 183. I am losing only 100,000 rupees. But if I pay on 15th of April, I lose 1.3 million rupees. Which is better? This is better. So I decide like this. This is called leads in advance. Similarly, you can do delay payment. Same thing, delay. If you realize that 15th of April, dollar is 195, $50, 195, 15th of June, for example, settlement, 15th of June, my $1 is going to be 188. It's coming down again. So when I realize that June if I pay, I have to pay at 188. But in April if I pay 195. What is better? 188 is better. I delay the payment. So I have two choices. Either lead in advance or delay the payment according to the exchange rate of the situation. Same thing happens for exports also. Exports also, you can tell now when you realize that another 1 month's time, rupee will be depreciating further and our $1 become 205 rupees, for example. If you know that your rupee going to be 205 rupees per dollar in 2 months or 1 month, what are you going to do? You tell your customers, don't pay next month, you take another month. Right? Common sense, right? You will try to do that. Even though it's against the trading practice or government rules, you might do that. You might do that. Why? You are going to gain. Without anything you do, you are gaining because of exchange rate. Exports. So you tell a customer, don't pay next month, month after. Customers are very happy. Why? You have to pay later. It's fine. For him, nothing okay. He will pay. So what I am trying to say, the leads and legs are two techniques you can do based on the market condition. But you need to find out here, okay, I am doing this. Is there any impact to me? Yes. What is the impact? If I pay early, not 15th of April, 15th of February, if I pay early, the supplier, what's going to happen? Exchange rate, fine, you are benefiting. What is the problem? 15th of April, if I am paying, my cash flows are going to be needed only on that date. But I am paying early, 2 months before, which means I need cash flow 2 months before. The cash flow, if I am going to take so much of money 2 months before, do I incur any cost or no cost? There is a cost, time value of money, which means I have to borrow money to pay the supplier early. Which means that 2 months early to pay, I have borrowing cost. So I need to decide how much is the borrowing cost. That borrowing cost I compare with my exchange loss saving. If the exchange loss saving is greater than the borrowing cost, paying early is a good decision. If the exchange loss saving is lesser than the borrowing cost, it's not worth to borrow money and settle. Paying on due date is better. So please note that even though we said leads and legs are good, you need to calculate your borrowing cost and compare. Is it worth it? Not worth it. I think in the TUTE you have the example, how do you calculate the borrowing cost and how the saving will work. It's in the TUTE. So you can look at that example. Further, in terms of business relationship, apart from your lead and leg only financially, you are fine. But other than financial, there are other aspects. When you delay your supply, when you delay your supplier, sometimes your supplier may not like it. May not. Supplier will not like it. Right, 15th of April due date, you tell supplier 15th of June, I will pay. Supplier is going to wait for another 2 months. Your supplier relationship gets spoiled. That is another disadvantage. Similarly, when you tell your exporter to pay later to you, there the customer is happy about it. But when you do that, sometimes in local condition, government might impose restrictions. So that's all the other aspects you have to consider before doing these techniques. But these are good management techniques to reduce the impact of exchange rate. So those are third technique. Fourth one, netting, or before that, fourth one, matching assets. Matching assets and liabilities. Fourth technique is about you match the foreign currency assets with foreign currency liability. Now take an example. A Sri Lankan company invest in Maldives. Sri Lankan company invest in Maldives resort. Sri Lankan company is going to invest in Maldives resort. Say it is $1 million. $1 million. So if they are going to invest $1 million, and this is going to be 5-year project. 5-year project. You are investing in Maldives, $1 million, 5-year project. And apart from your normal return from your project, you realize the investment 5 years later. That's how it works. $1 million you invest, you can recover the $1 million 5 years later. Now your exchange rate, what's going to happen? Say today $1 equals to 190. Today $1, 190. 5 years later, assume the $1 is say 185. Your dollar is depreciated. You have bought or invested under $1 million in Maldives resort, where 190. 5 years later, 185. You are going to lose. Technique says, if you are going to invest in assets, best thing is to match your assets with a borrowing. So if I am going to invest $1 million in Maldives today, I am supposed to, or it is only a technique. You can use it, you cannot, you don't want, you can avoid it. Borrowing $1 million. $1 million you borrow today. What are you going to do? You borrow $1 million today and invest $1 million. So, even after 5 years, your exchange rate become 185. Are you losing? To great extent, no. Why? It is matched with the borrowing. It matched. $1 million when you receive, you don't convert into rupees. You take the dollar from that factory or resort, you settle the bank loan there. In Maldives itself you settle. But assets, liability, it is a simple example, but it can be a repayment, 5-year repayment loan. So your investments are the 5-year repayment. So you can match your dollar to dollar, more dollar to dollar. If you go to borrow in Sri Lankan rupee and invest in dollars, then you are losing. But if you are doing dollar borrowing and invest in dollar, you are matched your assets and liability, you reduce the impact of exchange. Okay? So it is the dollar is going to, in this case I just took an example to say dollar will depreciate. Dollar is depreciate. Generally it's not, but in this example I just took it, dollar is depreciate. If that is the case, this is the best route. It may not be dollar, it can be any currency. Any currency, always try to match your assets with a liability so that you reduce the impact of exchange rate. This is especially when you are going abroad and investing. When you are going and investing in a factory or a business or a project, try to borrow some money. You may not borrow 100% from that country. Some money of that country investment you borrow in that currency, so that you reduce the exchange rate impact to some extent. So this is another technique, matching assets and liabilities. Fifth technique, netting. Netting. Page number 13. Netting. What is netting? It's an accounting technique. Where you are a company of a group, multinational group, say Unilever or HSBC or any multinational company you can think of. You are a part of a multinational group. When you are part of multinational group, you will see, you will have a receivable, you will have a payable. You have to pay somebody in another country, at the same time you will have a receivable from another country. So you have many company receivable and payable. Like in consolidation, I'm sure like in Sri Lanka when you do a consolidation of a group company, you will have receivable payable everywhere. Same thing if you are a multinational company, your receivable payable is not within one company or one country, many countries. So you have receivable and payable. So what I'm going to do? Netting technique says you will set off a receivable and payable. Receivable and payable in foreign currency. Say receivable is dollar, payable is in dollars. Say $1 million, maybe $0.8 million. So you have a receivable from one of the group company and you have a payable from another group company. You can set off each other. Right? So your net amount is $0.2 million. So you will set off and settle the balance in foreign currency. So you are reducing the risk of converting $1 million, one transaction, $0.8 million, another transaction. Otherwise, if you don't have this, you will have to convert $1 million into Sri Lankan rupees. One. Again, $0.8 million you convert into Sri Lankan rupees. In both cases, you convert, which means you are exposed to exchange rate risk. If you do the setting of receivable and payable and net amount only you have to settle. That is the only amount you are exposed to exchange rate risk. Whatever the movement in your exchange rate, you lose only for this amount, not for this, not for this. This is called netting. If you are setting off between only you and one company, it's called bilateral netting. Bilateral netting. There is two companies, only two companies you are talking, you and another company. Bilateral, two. If it is between many companies, many group companies, you are setting off multilateral netting is you are setting off many companies. You are a part of group, a larger group, multinational. You have many receivable, many payable. You set off each other, and net amount only you have to remit or whatever receive. That is called multilateral netting. So you have two techniques under this, bilateral, multilateral. If there are two companies involved, bilateral netting, many companies involved, multilateral netting. So what I am doing here, I am reducing my exposure. I set off this net amount only I will remit, which means I have to buy the dollars from the bank, not 1 million, only 0.2 million. My exchange rate losses reduces. This is the technique which will reduce my losses by doing accounting treatment. It's called netting. It's more of a netting is accounting treatment where you have a receivable payable set off. It has to be your company, your group company only, not with third party you can set off, with your group company you can set off. Okay? So this is called netting technique. Page number 13, you have an example also, you can look at it. The next technique, it's actually the more commonly used, forward exchange contract. Forward exchange contracts. Page number 15. Page number 15. Forward exchange contract. Forward exchange contract, page number 15. Forward exchange contract, page number 15. So what is this technique? This is a common technique which is used by most of the time by the importer and exporter in Sri Lanka, because this is a when you learn, you realize it's easier to use and it reduces the impact. It reduces the impact. So forward exchange technique. Forward exchange contract is actually a binding contract. Binding contract between bank and customer. It's a binding contract. It's a binding contract between bank and the customer to buy or sell a quantity of foreign currency, to buy or sell a quantity of foreign currency on a future date, at a agreed rate. Please note this, page number 15, you can read that, same definition is there. It's a binding contract. This important wording is a binding contract. Binding means there are rights and obligation for both parties, customer and the bank. Both parties have rights and obligation towards this contract. I believe that you understand this. Rights mean you are supposed to, you are entitled to certain things. But conditions, what you call obligations is, you are supposed to do under the contract. So there is one is a responsibility, other one is a right. Right? So please note, it's a binding contract between the bank and the customer. Bank and the customer. So if the bank and customer comes to an agreement where customer will buy or sell, it can be both way, buy or sell a quantity of foreign currency. The foreign currency amount is a quantity. You will decide, okay, this is the amount of foreign currency buying and selling. Bank and the customer both agree to buy and sell a quantity of foreign currency. Both will agree. $100,000 I am willing to buy. Bank will say I am willing to sell $100,000. When? On a future date. On a future date. Both parties agree that we are doing this. We are today agreeing, but doing the transaction on future date. At what rate? Agreed rate. Same example what we have been talking in the morning. Sri Lankan importer, he imports, and 15th of January, imported goods worth $100,000 from USA. $1 equal to 182 at that day. 3 months later, he is supposed to settle. 3 months later, the importer is supposed to settle. The importer is supposed to settle on 15th of April. 3 months credit. 3 months credit, he is supposed to settle on 15th of April. So please note, you have imported and you are supposed to settle on 15th of April. How much you have to settle? $100,000. On 15th of January, rate is 182. 15th of April, we don't know the exchange rate. On 15th of January, nobody knows 15th of April rate. Nobody knows. So, you go to bank and ask, what's going to be the rate? Bank will say, okay, 15th of April, $1 will be so much if you enter into forward exchange contract. But you have got to know that anyway Sri Lanka rupee is going to depreciate. You have got to know from the market circles, Sri Lanka rupee depreciating by April. So what is the best thing? You want to get into a risk management. How do I reduce risk? Forward exchange contract. So you go to bank and say, fine, we reduce the risk. Shall we enter into forward exchange contract? Bank will say, okay, fine, we both signed the agreement. It's a binding contract. I am willing to sell $100,000 to you on 15th of April 2020 to settle your supplier at 190. At 190. So bank and customer agree to do the transaction at 190 on 15th of April 2020. So this is the forward exchange contract rate. Forward exchange contract rate. Now, what is the settlement value? Settlement value is how much? 190, $100,000 into 190. $190 is rate is 190. $100,000, which is how much? 19 million rupees. 19 million rupees. So 19 million rupees is the settlement value. Settlement value is 19 million rupees. So company and the bank agree to do this transaction on 15th of April 2020. Accordingly, the company's settlement value 19 million. Now you might ask the question, why? 182 is the import cost. We are paying 19 million. In this case, its cost is rupees 18 million. Anyway, I am losing 1 million. True, you are losing 1 million. But if you don't enter into forward exchange contract, what is going to be your exchange rate on that day? You don't know. Even the bank don't know. If the actual dollar rate on 15th of April 2020 is $1 equals to 195. 15th of April 2020, actual $1 rate is 195. If that is the case, how much your cost of settlement? 19.5 million. You are losing more than your forward exchange contract. But tell me, when do you know how much is your exchange rate? Are you aware on 15th of January, when you imported goods, are you aware what is your exchange rate on 15th of April? As I mentioned earlier, no one knows. No one knows. Truly in Sri Lanka, 15th of January, anybody who imported this year didn't know 15th of April, what is the rate? But 15th of April, rate is, say, 190 odd. So the forward exchange contract help you as well as the bank to agree on a rate or for a future date. That's what I said, agree on a date, rate, future date. Only thing you are agreeing, and then it's a contract, binding contract. If you say your actual rate is not 195, your actual rate 185. If your actual rate is becoming 185 on 15th of April, you have entered with the bank on a forward exchange contract. Bank will say on 15th of April, our contract accordingly, please buy the dollars at 190. Even though market rate is 185. Now tell me, are you at an advantage by going with the market, or are you at an advantage by exercising the binding contract? If you exercise the binding contract, your cost of the settlement is 19 million. If you are going by the market, your cost is 18.5 million. You are cheap. Which one you can go? Market or the contract? The answer is contract. Why? It is what? Binding contract. This is the important. It's a binding. You have the rights, true. Similarly, you have obligation. You cannot tell the bank, sorry, I don't want to buy the dollars on that date. Bank will not allow it. Bank will say, please buy the dollar at 190. So you need to get this point clear. Since it's a binding contract, once you enter into the contract, on the due date, you have to exercise the contract at 190, even though market rate is favorable. That is why it's called a binding contract between bank and customer to buy, sell. It can be both. A quantity of foreign currency on a future date, any date you can specify, at an agreed rate today. You agree the rate today, not on the future date. Today you agree. 15th of January you agree with the bank, what is the rate? 15th of April we will buy, but today rate is agreed. Now tell me, forward exchange contract is beneficial, not beneficial? I am sure you will have answer. if market conditions are unfavorable, this is beneficial. If the market conditions are favorable, this is not beneficial. That would be the answer. But whether the market conditions are favorable or not favorable, when we get to know, market conditions are favorable or not favorable, when do we get to know? Are we getting it to know on 15th of January or 15th of April? The answer is 15th of April. Nobody knows what is the exchange rate on 15th of April. So if that is the case, 15th of January you have got to decide, am I going to take a risk management technique or I am going to go with the market and pay the market? A common sense, good risk management principle is when you realize there is a risk involved, try to take risk management. You can't say, no, it's a foolish thing to do. No, it's a risk management. You do it. There is a cost. Sometimes you benefit, sometimes you don't benefit. But there is a risk management. So all of us have to understand that 15th of January, nobody knows the rate. Since nobody knows the rate, it's better that we get into the forward exchange contract. On the 15th of April, if the market rate is favorable, true, we are losing. If the market condition is not favorable, we are gaining. So this answer we will get to know only on that date. So please note that this is called forward exchange contract. It's a binding contract. You have the rights and the obligation. Always remember risk management, whatever you do, it is, you can't say always it will make gain. It will make gains or profits is not the always the answer. On the day you feel there is a risk, decide whether I should take management or not. The day you feel there is a risk in the future, you take risk management. The question is whether that decision is correct or not. That is the decision you take that day. So nobody can say, no, you have made a wrong decision. That's why we had to lose. Same time somebody will say, no, you made a good decision. That's why we saved money. It can both ways happen. But you have got to decide whether I need risk management or not. It's a simple thing. I think maybe now you can understand the example better. March 20th, as a country, we were locked down, or we were imposed with curfew. Sri Lanka had a curfew. Till to date, its curfew is there, right? So the curfew was implemented by government with the medical or the association guidelines, authorities' recommendation. Government did that. So they did a risk management. Why? What is a risk? The COVID-19 gets spread among the public and people will get into sickness or people will die. So risk is very large. At that point of time, 20th of March, when they decided, that was the time they decided this risk is huge, that impact human lives across the board. People will lose life and they will get into sickness. That's a bigger risk. So the government decision at that day was that. Can anyone say today, now the government now plans to open up mainly the western province from Monday. So hopefully we are back on work Monday onwards to some extent. Right? So when we say that Monday we are starting, can anyone say the decision that we took on 20th of March to close the country was a wrong decision or wrong risk management that has resulted in some billions of dollars lost to the country? Companies, individual, country, we are lost. So it was a bad decision or wrong decision government took. But what was the right thing to do on that day? Because nobody knows the magnitude of the risk and the impact of the risk on 20th of March. Nobody knew. It's only a forecasted, estimated. Since everyone was forecasting and estimating, you want to take risk minimization. You want to reduce impact of the risk. How do I do? Take drastic decisions. You took it. True, maybe today we all sit and say, maybe the government has lost, people have lost, companies have lost, all that story. But if you didn't do that, who knows what's the impact? Assume that we didn't have the curfew on that day. We were normal on normal days. And assume that in case we all of us fall sick, and people have died, and the economy collapses, and people also lost their lives. We couldn't come out of it, like other countries which are going through very bad phase. So if we have gone through that, then at that point, we should have closed on 20th of March. So always remember, risk management is something like that. On the day you realize that the risk is going to be, you have got to decide whether you want risk management. Sometimes it shows that you may gain, sometimes it will show you lose. But no choice, you have to take the risk management. One of the examples I used to say in the class, that is, say that today there is no students in front of me, but assume that all the students are here, and suddenly there is an announcement coming from IAS management. There is a fire in the building, 9th floor, fire in the building, right? Announcement comes, fire in the building. Immediately everyone to get evacuated or evacuate or run away. So the announcement comes, 9th floor, there is a fire, immediately rush. So what do you do? As human being, all of us are, what the common sense? Run from here. So when we start running, all are running. And we all know there is an entrance there. And everyone coming from the other floors are also joining the queue. So everyone is panicking. Everyone is excited. Everyone wants to get out of this building sooner as possible. So now the risk is known, that is, there is a fire. So we all know that risk is, we are going to lose our lives. If the fire gets faster, evaporate everywhere, everyone is going to lose life. So what's the best thing to do? Run fast as possible. So everyone start running, but then there is a crowd. Classroom people can get out because there is a queue. What other floor B people are also coming on the same staircase. So what do I do? What we do? We all have to see how fast we get out of the building. Today we are in 3rd floor. Right? So it takes some time to get into the ground floor, but we don't know whether the fire will catch all of us. So what is the best thing? There are windows here. There are windows. What do? We jump out of the window. Not everybody, some people jump out of the window. Who feel that my life is more precious than my legs or hands, my life is precious, I jump. So people start jumping. Few people started jumping. And people who jump down, obviously they have got injured. Immediately somebody take them to the hospitals. So some other people have injured their body, injured their head, injured their legs, and some people are fractured, all done. But within another 20 minutes, the announcement comes, it's a mistake, the fire didn't catch in this building, it's the next building. So not in this building, next building only the fire took place. Now tell me, people who have rushed by jumping out of the window, who are now in hospital getting treatments for the fracture or their injuries, they do wrong risk management? Or did they take a wrong judgment on risk management? Yes or no? And people who are going on the staircase slowly due to the queue in the staircase made the right decision. What is the answer? Please think. This is a hypothetical example, but which is very relevant to our subject. You know there is a risk of fire, very clear knowledge. Everyone wants to do risk management. People rush this way. Somebody risking their life by jumping out of the window. And after 15-20 minutes, there is an announcement, no fire in the building. People who have taken risk management, have jumped, and people who have not taken risk management, or they also taken risk management, slight risk management by going in the staircase. Okay? We'll continue. Okay, so the example that you are talking, right? So now decide whether the risk management taken by some of the students who jumped out the window and who is in hospital getting treatment, I don't want that to happen, but this is for example, did they make a wrong decision? And people who go or went on the staircase made the wrong decision, or people who jumped made the wrong decision of risk management. The answer is nobody made wrong decision. Right? It's risk management is that it's your judgment at that point in time, what is the risk management you want to do. Right? So people who didn't want to risk their life by jumping, they were going on the staircase. So they are also doing a risk management. Why? Running. They are not sitting here and waiting for the fire to happen. They are running. But they are going at a speed because they are blocked in the staircase. But people who are thinking, no, this is not going to work, might as well I jump out of the window, even if I break my leg, it's fine, my life is safe, I'll jump. So those people who are in hospital, those people who go on the staircase, no 15 minutes time, no fire, nothing happened, they will say, okay, where are my friends? They will go to the hospital. So when they go there, these people who go on the staircase, nothing happened to them, they will go and tell the students who are friends who are in hospital, you have made a wrong judgment of risk management. Why do you jump? It's a wrong decision. You are a fool. You broke here. Now you can't come to class next week. Now, that's the reality of risk management. But, rewind the whole thing. There is no announcement, subsequent announcement, to say there is no fire. There is no subsequent announcement saying no fire. There is fire. People who jumped out of the window who are getting treatment in hospital, fine. There are people who have been running from this and the staircase, there is a blockage and they get disturbed. And the fire takes place and some people get injured. Or their lives are at risk. Now tell me, the people who jumped out the window made right decision on risk management or not? The answer is, the people who jumped made the right decision at that point in time. Because there is a fire. If there is no fire, they made a wrong decision. Or vice versa, if there is no fire. For the other people who are going on the staircase. Please understand, risk management is something you got to make at the time when you see the risk. At a later point of time, it's easy for anybody to say, somebody made a wrong decision. But it's not something for judgment. It is what you understand and analyze and identify the risk at that point in time. On that day, 20th of March, if the government and the health authorities' judgment is that our lives of the country or the people is very high risk, and they lose life, they will be sick, they become sick, lot of issues, To avoid that, best risk management, close the economy or close the country is the best answer. That is the right decision at that point of time. Today you can't comment and say you shouldn't have done that. You have impacted the economy. When in America, everyone was saying that close the country, shut down, shut down, shut down. The government didn't take action immediately. It took action later. Now all of us know the impact. So that's the judgment on your risk management. Whether you take the decision of risk management then and there, maybe later somebody can predict and say, not predict, somebody can comment and say, you made a wrong decision. I give another example. With that I stop this topic for the day. You will see the airline, aircraft, passengers on board, 100 people, the pilot or the captain taking the flight, and the announcement comes in the while in the air. There are more stormy weather and the flight will get knocked with something. So immediately everyone has to take precaution. So if you don't do that, flight can, knock a rock or something and something will happen, people will die. So what is the answer? That is a risk already announced. But immediately, according to airline rules, if you have traveled in aircraft, you will know that once you get into aircraft, there is announcement of the video, maybe some class by the air hostess to say that how to protect yourself if there is any risk happening. So here there is an announcement of risk. Immediately everyone has to get a parachute, jump out of the flight. That's a normal thing. So the support staff, crew members in the aircraft will support you to get out of the flight one by one with the parachute. Sometimes the parachute will not be getting properly connected. People will somehow jump and some people will knock and jump and damage themselves. But within another 10 minutes or 15 minutes, the captain realizes there is no risk. He can go on another route and escape. But by the time, most of the people have started jumping. Now, if you go to say, people who jumped are made wrong decision, or the pilot made the wrong decision to allow the people to jump, you are wrong. Why? At that point in time, that risk is understood to be severe, and you have to take risk management. So you have taken risk management. That's the only way is to get out. But later, nothing happened. Just because nothing happened, people who jumped cannot be fooled, or captain cannot be a fool. He made a decision according to the guideline of the aircraft aviation rules. If there is an announcement like this is a step you should take. They are fine. So please note, always the risk management will not make you gain. Sometimes you are benefiting, sometimes you lose. When you benefit, people say very good judgment, very good risk management. When you lose, people will say wrong decision, wrong risk management. So please note, at the time of your risk, your judgment is there to make a risk management. You are not making the risk management when the risk is happened. No point. At that time you can't do that. When you realize there is a risk, you have to take risk management. So at that time, your risk management technique, what you adopt, may result in gain, may result in loss. That nobody can predict. But you are supposed to make a risk management at that point. As somebody says, no, I don't want to take risk management. Don't jump from the flight, everyone wait. Even if it crashes, everyone will die. That's fine. That's your risk management. Sometimes you lose your life, sometimes you're okay. The American president decision of no shutdown immediately at that point in time, that was the risk management he did, and people are suffering today. Sad part. So the risk management he didn't do at the right time, people are losing. Today, our country, we made risk management, closed down the full country, locked down, and today we are, at least we can say that we are comparatively better than most of the country. So please understand this technique risk management. Knowledgeably, I am just giving you a practical example so that you get the knowledge clearly, not more than calculating numbers. Get it very clearly, the risk management, risk and risk management. Forward exchange contract is a technique which also is a part of risk management. You might take it on the risk date, might gain, might not gain. As I mentioned earlier example, you might gain, you might not gain. But that is the decision at that time. Nobody can say it's wrong decision. It's a right decision at that point in time. Okay? So we will continue with these techniques. Next one is money market hedging. I would request you to go through the TUTE. This forward exchange contract in page number 15. Up to that we have gone through one by one technique. You can go through the techniques properly in the TUTE and go through the study pack also. We will go to the money market hedging technique next class. Further, I would request you to read some business papers over the last few weeks, even though those are not in printed form. I am sure, like, because there is no way the printed form can be delivered to anybody. It's always the electronic form papers. I'm sure most of the people would have got the electronic form. Your WhatsApp group, people would have shared. You can go through the papers and see the exchange rate related subject and understand exchange rate related stuff and understand the economic impact because of exchange rate. So you should know what's happening to the exchange rate, what is the impact to the country, all that, because those are practical things. Your exam also can be asked. So please go through that. Stay safe, even though we are opening from Monday as a country. Stay safe, take care of it, because until that virus is fully eliminated from the country or maybe a globe, all of us have to be safe. But it's all have short time, short period. So we also will come out faster in a better way. Only thing, you have to be safe. All precautions, all the techniques or the guidelines given by government, please follow continuously, because at the end of the day, it's all lives. It's more valuable than anything. You can make any amount of money if you are in good health. So we all have to protect ourselves, your family members, and take care. We'll continue on the balance in the next class. Thank you.